To the contemporary observers, the conflict of the Constitution and Convention that was most important wasn't the big states and the small states that was solved by the Great Compromise. It was actually between northern and southern states over the issue of slavery. Thomas Jefferson even went so far as to suggest later on that slavery was the fire bell in the night. By 1787, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, and Rhode Island had already banned the practice of slavery. Many northern states were already well on the way. The Northwest Ordinance had forbid the practice. Many of the founding fathers saw slavery as a contradiction to the idea of personal liberties and individual freedoms that they had fought for through the Declaration of Independence. But southern states defended the issue of slavery, one mostly as economic necessity. By the time of the Civil War, which I know we're not there yet, but by the time of the Civil War, slave property is going to be worth more than all other industries combined. So this is a huge economic issue. Southern delegates actually threatened to walk out had slavery been a major issue at the convention. So some of the founders just assumed that slavery is naturally going to die out, that they were just going to kick the can down the road and eventually it would go away on its own. Some of the founding fathers were more abolitionist. While not an American, Marquis de Lafayette, the Frenchman that was so vital to George Washington's campaign, actually proposed to Washington to start a freedmen's colony down in South America. So he was very much for the practice of abolition. So the compromise that comes out of the Constitution that's most famous is the Three-Fifths Compromise. The Southern delegates wanted to ensure that their slaves would be counted towards population, and therefore they would get more weight in terms of both the House of Representatives and therefore in the Electoral College. It's not an accident that the Southern states contribute 12 of the first 16 presidents. 12 of the first 16 are slaveholders because the Southern states did have more power because of that Three-Fifths Compromise. That Three-Fifths Compromise means that 3/5 of the slave population counts as population, although they didn't have any rights or votes, they were just simply property. The North did try to get in there that would count towards 3/5 of the taxation, but that's something that never is actually implemented. So the South got a benefit without any of the real cost. Other compromises are that international slavery could not be banned for 20 years. At that 20-year mark, it was actually banned that year. And Article 4, Section 2, Clause 3 is actually known as a fugitive slave clause. So while the word slave is never used in the Constitution, they talk about free peoples and other peoples or people held in service of labor. There actually is a clause in the Constitution designed to help support the slave system. Women also suffered during the Constitution. Not suffered isn't the right word. They were largely ignored in the Constitutional Convention. Political rights for women were largely dismissed. Some women did try to force the issue, largely ignored. The Constitution doesn't even mention the word women in it, just like it doesn't mention the word slavery. So these are some of the issues and limitations of the Constitution as it was written originally.